was fortunate to work with someone who was, to my 12 years old, 65, and took me by the hand basically and said, "You want to be in a band?" And I said, "That's all I ever wanted to be in. I just always want to be in a band." When I went to school, I had to have a major. I had to go by the rules of whatever that institution wanted me to do. But in the life of being a mentee, I did whatever I wanted to alongside an experienced musician. And I learned more from that relationship than I ever learned in any school of music. And I have done many years in academics, and it's a really unique relationship. So, Annie, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll pivot to Paula and Iris. But we'd just like to know how you came into the role of mentorship and how the Jam Pack started and became Fair Black Rose, which, if I can advocate for anything all week, is going to be my favorite show of the week. I already know out of the gate was seeing Fair Black Rose at the Leadership Bluegrass reception last night, and if you get the opportunity to catch that band, you want to do that. It's a very passionate exchange with the audience, and passion is what this is all about. So, Annie, how did you come into mentorship, and tell us about the Jam Pack?
Well, as far as for Jam Pack is concerned, in 1994, that's 27 years ago, I was a substitute teacher in the Chandler schools. I didn't have to work full-time anymore. And I had an education background which had nothing really to do with the music, but I developed this big passion for learning the mandolin. And I took it everywhere I went. I substituted whether it was preschool to high school chemistry, anything like that, and practiced and taught children to sing, because I had a big fear of performance. And that had always stymied me in doing much of anything musically. So we have a school, big school, just a block up the street, a largest school in Chandler, about 1,000 children, and I was in a second grade class. And after school that day, two little boys came to the door. They knew where I lived, and they knocked, and they said, "Can you play some more music with us?" And you just never know. That was the start, and I asked my wonderful husband, Vincent, 20 years older than me, you know, who didn't need to be branching out on something like this, "Why if we do something for the neighborhood?" And he said, "Sure, why not? And I'll help you, I'll back you up." The very next week, 6 little children in the front yard. And all we had were harmonicas and my mandolin and some songs. Will the Circle Be Unbroken, I think, Tom Dooley. And when I saw the expressions on their faces and the joy of singing, I said, okay, this is it. I'm gonna just do this, and we'll be in the front yard. Nobody really knew me in the neighborhood because I hadn't done anything there. And the next 3 weeks, we had like 17, and it just went from there. And then I got a kit, called it Canjo, like a single string stick, frets. We got the kits and we built them ourselves. Some of the kids oldest one was about 12, the youngest was 4. Anyway, so we built that, and it just went from there. I just never put it down, and they began to rely on coming to the house, at first just once a week, and then very shortly twice a week. And still on our sticks, we played our first bluegrass festival, bona fide real bluegrass festival put on by Candy and Mark Miracle in 1998. And we didn't look like any other bluegrass band. And the Arizona Bluegrass Association decided, well, they are doing traditional music. And so they began to donate instruments and lessons, and that's where it went. I had I mean, I had a passion for doing it. That's all there is. Sometimes you don't really get a passion, but I never put it down. And the rest, Fair Black Rose is still in Jam Pack. They play, we all perform together, but they also organize, that's part of Jam Pack, to organize small bands. So you get more, you know, when there's 25 in there, you can really hide, just like me. You can hide behind the better players. So they formed their own band. There's even an older one called Cisco and the Race Cars. Mark back there, Mark had a little band in Jam Pack called String Cheese. And so they did little performances, right, you know, during our shows. Then I would call them out to do a couple of songs. So that's how we did, you know, that was, my whole thing is, I'm not a very good player, they all know that. But I've kept them all together. And there's ways to do that.
There are ways to
Cookies.
do that. We have our
Cookies.
ways.
So that's my, oh, that's not too long.
That's your story and you're
That's the
sticking
story.
to it.
I'm sticking to it.
What a simple transaction that it came from. It's just, we want to play some more music, and the answer is yes. That's beautiful, Annie.
Thank you.
Greg, you want to come up and join us? We got a seat for you right
Oh,
down
that
there.
Greg Blake.
Yes, that Greg. The only one, the man that
I
only
couldn't hear
Greg
the
Blake.
first name.
Yeah, we want to welcome Greg. Good morning. Thank you
How
so
are you?
much for coming in.
I got a text about a technical issue.
Okay, well, we can ride with you or without you, or how long we get you.
No, it was said let the tech people know that somebody was watching the mentoring panel,
Yes.
and the social media panel took over the screen.
Oh, well, we might talk to these guys about it.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
How are you?
They're just savvier with the technology than we are. Well, I want to pivot right now because you know, when I was being mentored, I just always showed up because I didn't want to hurt the feelings of the guy that was mentoring me. And it wasn't until I was put, my parents would say, no, you got to go to a gig. I'd say, but it's prom. And they, no, you gotta go play that gig because you don't want to hurt his feelings. Well, it took me until I was 40 years old until I realized this man taught me everything I needed to know about being an artist, and that was it. And he did it for free. And so, Paul, I want to pivot to you and Iris a little bit, and we want to welcome you guys for being here and for representing. And if the Fair Black Rose comes in, then we'll do the same thing to them too. Which is, I want to know how music has impacted your life and how playing music has impacted your life all the way, the good, the bad, the ugly, anything you have to share about it.
Well, for me personally, music has had like this big impact on my life. Beforehand, when I was like 5 years old, I heard my friend Maria play the violin for the first time. And then I asked her if I could play it, and then I realized that I might want to play violin from now on. So then I went to Mrs. Beach's house, and they were like, oh, well, this is like where I get my free instrument and everything. And I asked Ms. Beach if I could go and be a part of the band, and she said, no, we have enough people already. And yeah, she always says this when a new person comes in. And so I said, oh, well, I'll come to practice. And she asked me where I live, and I live like half an hour away from where she lives. And she's like, I don't know if this will work. If you show up for every week from now on, I'll let you be a part of the band. So I consistently showed up after school every single time, Tuesday and Thursday. And I just had fun, and then I realized that like a lot of the people there were like similar to me. They all wanted to play music, and they all just had friends, and I wanted to be a part of that. So now 7 years later, one of like my best friends, Carlos, is there with me, and we both play fiddle. And I helped him learn fiddle too, so playing fiddle has like helped me teach others how to do things. At school, I usually like help others around and everything, and that's like impacted my life greatly. And as for traveling, I can say, oh yeah, I go to these stages. Oh yeah, I performed at Picking the Pines, which is like one of the biggest events we just had. And I'm able to do things like this, like talk at a panel. Like, I never imagined myself doing that. I know a lot of people don't have the same opportunity as me, and I'm just so grateful that Genpack has had that great opportunity for me. That I'm able to play all of this for free. And then my fiddle, it's like the prettiest thing ever. I just loved seeing it, and anytime, like, when I left it for a little while and I opened it back up, I realized what I was missing out on. And so now that I play it, I get so happy. And then sometimes I hear some of the performances and I realize like how much joy the music brings to me. And it makes me so happy because now I have other 3 little girls that I'm teaching. And they're all like, oh, Paula, I want to play just like you do. And I'm like, no, you have to play better than I do. And so I try my best to teach them. Sometimes they irritate me, but I've learned how to control my patience. So yeah, that's pretty much what teaching, like, playing my fiddle has brought to me. It's like brought patience, it's brought joy to my life, and it's brought a lot of new experiences. I've been able to experience so many things that I never thought I would experience, like jamming. I didn't even know what that was until eventually we went to one of the events we had. And Howard, he's not here today, but he's told me, oh yeah, just play some random chords, just figure it out. And so I managed I learned how to improvise as well. And yeah, I've just had so much fun playing fiddle, and that's what it's brought to me.
Nice.
Wonderful.
When you have students come and want to work with you, do you tell them your studio's full?
No, but it does get a handful sometimes. They're all like, they're just too much. I'm like, play in order. No, they all want to play at the same time.
That's beautiful. So you're doing a chain of partnership and that's a wonderful opportunity when you have a nonprofit or a situation where you have the freedom to foster relationships over the curriculum, which is what I think another thing that's so different about mentorship. Iris has been working with me for a while. She's my daughter, and so we can get into the good, the bad, the ugly with Iris because she's been on the rodeo for a while.
So I was kind of born into like the music, just the music. Both my parents are musicians, and I think when I think about how it's affected me or affected my life, it's not, I never realized it was affecting my life until I got older and I looked at what other people's childhoods looked like and what mine looked like. And I think when it comes to the ugly, I think if you're a musician growing up in a musical household, that tends to come with a certain amount of like insecurity, just because, you know, you compare yourself to your parent, which is also, as I got older, I came to appreciate that. When I was younger, I kind of resented it just because I felt like I was never going to be like a good musician, or because I didn't play as good as my mom, or my dad. My dad plays guitar and my mom plays violin, and I play both. So it's like insecurity either way. But as I got older, it was something I realized that it pushed me to be my best self. And it also, I think as I've gotten older and now that I've noticed that it allows you to kind of create your own community or your own like outside family. I formed a band recently just with friends from school, and those are like now my favorite people on earth, and it's comforting to know that I always have a community that I can relate to. Just if you meet someone who plays music, or if you play music with someone, you always kind of have that bond that's sort of unrivaled by any other person you're going to be friends with, which is, it's kind of messed up because I have friends that don't play music, but it's sort of a different kind of bond, that it's almost familial, and I really treasure that, and I'm lucky that it was something I was born into. But even when you get into it at a later age, or it's something that's not in your family, you learn like that sense of community. It's really a beautiful thing. So.
Nice. That's why we're all here, is community, I think. And and then creating a responsible community and an inclusive family of World of Bluegrass. We've all pushed through, I mean, the planners especially and the folks that volunteer to even make this happen this year are pushing through some pretty serious obstacles, and everybody's paid to fly out and be here, and it's a lifetime community that you can always come back to as you move through life. And I want to come back to this question of anxiety and how serving others, because a lot of performers have performance anxiety, and they have that fear of being a focal point, right? So Paula, does teaching others help, does it do anything to that feeling? Does it spin it around so that you have less performance anxiety when you're playing with your students, for example?
So when I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I am able to get the anxiety, the idea of my girls messing up during a performance. Like when I was smaller and I was all by myself and I was barely playing fiddle, I did get a lot of anxiety and I had to hide in the back from everyone because I was so scared that someone was going to hear me play the wrong chord or something and hear my checking that was offbeat. It was just, I got so anxious over that. But I did manage to control it, and I don't think I ever cried during a performance. I'm not sure, I don't remember. But definitely teaching, it gives me the stress relief of my girls messing up, because I know that I'm teaching them good enough, because they always look at me during a performance and they're like, Paula, what key is this in? And I have to go, okay guys, we went over this during practice. And they're like, okay, we got it. And it's relief anxiety I get from like just going on to stages. Like I'm able to tell the girls, take a deep breath, we're gonna be okay. And they're always like, okay. And I'm like, just stick by me, just follow my lead, we'll be fine. Just remember to like relax a little bit. I don't want any of you guys starting crying in the middle of stage. And I've never done that, so I'm pretty grateful about that. And it's helped in other areas too. Like, as the speech said, I'm in ROTC, and we do like these presentations of colors in front of the whole school, which is probably about over 1,000 kids. And Jam Pack, like performing in front of people, has just managed to take my anxiety away, the fear that I'm gonna mess up. So it's definitely brought that strength of how to relieve myself from anxiety and just breaking down. Like I've managed to tell myself I'm gonna be okay. I've done a lot more. So you're gonna be fine, Paula. And when you get on the stage, it is nerve-wracking that you're like, oh, these people actually know what they're doing. So they're actually gonna notice if I mess up and play the wrong chord. And then I realized this is why we practice. And it's definitely relieved that idea that, oh, I'm gonna mess up, I'm gonna get anxious, blah, blah, blah. It's relieved the idea of releasing my anxiety and just being calm, because I remember that I practiced and I helped the girls and we're gonna be okay. So it definitely has helped with my anxiety.
Yeah, I know as a performer, when I started teaching, it changed the whole thing. So it was more anxiety is kind of universal.
Yeah.
And then there's also this idea that you're not there to exact a response from the audience. You're there to kind of channel all the gifts that were given to you.
Yep.
And that's changed the way that I think about performing. I'm channeling those gifts. Greg, I'm going to pivot to you. For those of you guys that don't know, Greg is, in my humble estimation, one of the living legends of our time in bluegrass. It's rare that he doesn't just get a standing ovation. I've seen it over and over, and I had the good fortune to work with Greg, who, coming from West Virginia, had a kind of a front seat to the lineage of bluegrass in terms of what are the expectations and the roles in a bluegrass band. But I want to talk about the mentorship that you do as a performer, and kind of psychologically, what does that do for what does mentorship do in your performance career? What role does mentorship play in your performance career?
Well, thanks, Annie, for that introduction that you got word for word that I gave to you.
I bet it's still like a $20 item.
No, I think it's an integral role. I mean, and I don't try to compartmentalize it. I mean, it's to me, it's just part of the outflow of who you are. I believe the idea whether I'm performing or I don't feel like I flip a switch. It's just I bring people along with me. I feel like if I'm in a context where the only time that I can't do that is a solo gig. But if you're in an ensemble, if you're in a band, I think that's just part of what you do. You're in this thing together, and you're mutually sharing with one another. And it just so happened that I've been around the barn a few more times than some people have that might be playing with me. And I feel like it's my responsibility, especially since somebody took the time, the effort, and had the passion to do that with me, that I just pass that on, and I'm just gonna bring them along with me. And okay, we're gonna do this together. If I have to, I'll carry it for a little bit, if I have to. But there's going to be a time when, okay, I said, now it's your turn. I'll show you how to do it, and we can talk about how to do it. You got questions, but now we're in front of the people, and the lights are on, the mics are on. It's time to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the relationship that I see between performance and mentorship, and that is you're continually working on the product that you're giving, and you just pull people alongside you, and just walk with them. So.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I'm about to turn it over to any participants. A lot of times people come to the panel because they are educators and they are mentors or mentorees. I want to reiterate, I think, the point that you made about performance and teaching not being separate career paths certainly has been, especially in American roots music, whether it's bluegrass or blues or any kind of folk tradition that is kind of human, passed from one human to another human. I've just always seen teaching not as a separate career path, but the one is you learn and the other is you show somebody else what you learned. Very simple identity as an artist. And with the pandemic, it felt like the people that did that, like you or Annie, with the pandemic, it was like that you could be, it's a career, it allows your career to go forward, and truth prevails. So if you're doing it kind of in the school of thought like Jam Pack is, then truth prevails. And I imagine that you started out to help members of the neighborhood, but that transaction is going to be your legacy as a human, which is that beautiful, you can't go wrong.
Right.
You just kind of
No wrong note.
No wrong note.
Yeah.
I love it. Some ones that are relatively righter than, anyway. So I go there. So I want to open it up to you guys in the audience. Go for it.
Well, I'm just going to say my first mentorship was my daughter. I was just learning to play music at age 35. She was 10 or 11 and just come along with me to everything. And one of the old-time fiddlers at that time commented, well, you're always with your mom, why don't you learn? Well, I was just a beginner learning, but I started teaching her as I learned. So it was the blind leading the blind. Whatever I was learning, I was showing her. She's stayed with fiddle and gone on, I've branched out. But the most fun thing that I ended up doing, two different things, mentorship-wise, I drove a school bus for 23 years, and I would take an instrument on my bus every day, a different one. And then when I'm sitting at the school loading for like 10 or 15 minutes, I'd play for the kids.
Oh.
And I had one kid that was actually a troubled kid, and I didn't even know it because he was so nice on the bus. But he would sit there very shyly, and one day he just commented, just very quietly, I play the guitar too.
Oh.
And I said, oh, wow. When we started a conversation, I said, come on Tuesday night. My band plays at this restaurant every Tuesday. And I feature kids. And he came quietly and shyly, and then the next time he brought a video camera, and he said, "Can I video, do you have permission to video you?" I said, "Yes." The next week he came and brought a guitar, and he got up and he was shy and quiet and sang off key, but he sang and he did it. He started coming week after week, and at the end of 3 years of him riding my bus and him coming down there and doing that, his mom pulled me aside at the last of school when they were doing their senior project, and I said, I told him, I said, "What are you doing for your senior project?" He said, "I'm making a guitar." And he brought it on the bus and showed me, and I said, "Come down, bring it to the restaurant, those people will be interested in this," explaining it. So I went to his presentation, and afterwards his mother was in the hall, and she pulled me aside and she said, "I want you to know that you changed my son's life." She said he was threatening to drop out of school. He was failing every class. And she says, if you would have told me that I'm sitting here watching him graduate with straight A's, he's going to go into the military, and he was afraid they weren't going to take him, but because he was a minor, they did take him. But she said that changed his life. That one little thing, you know. But it was a big thing. And he did go on, and he called me when he was 2 years after graduation and said, "I'm playing in my church band, and I'm a leader in the base here in South Dakota," and, you know. So, you know, the mentorship thing is cool.
It is, and it's
Very
such a
important.
two-way street.
You know, so, but anyway, then I started Kids in Bluegrass, and became a great here, helps me with it. And we go to festivals, and we work a two-hour workshop. It's kids that are already learning to play, so you don't have time to teach 15 kids, but they're kids learning to play, and then we work with them on how to play together, and how to work the mic, and how to, okay, you 3 kids know Joe Clark, you know it on the guitar, so we're gonna team you together, you know, and you play it first, and then you're gonna play it, and then, you know, and we teach them how to do it that way. And so we do a 2-hour workshop, and then they take the stage and play it. So that's kind of what, you know. But the school bus driving was fun. I had a different instrument every day. Tomorrow, can you bring the mandolin, or can you bring the fiddle tomorrow, or, you know. And if I had any troublemakers, I'd say, if you get in trouble, you have to sing. So then okay, here we go. So I have to sing on the bus, and I'm like, no.
What size of a kid is that?
Yeah.
I love it. One of my favorite points you made is coming up in education, right? I'm deep in the pursuit of a PhD to try and subvert the dominant paradigm from the inside out. Don't tell anybody. But the idea that the kid never gave you any trouble
Yeah.
fits a lot of studies in neuroscience right now, where they're showing, like, in all these years of public education where, you know, different demographic of kids have been identified as causing trouble, and they're finally going to ask the teacher, where is your heart? And they're finding that really kids are willing to learn from teachers that are willing to teach across the board. And it was just a tricky part of that hierarchy, which I think is why hierarchies always should be suspect. And in mentorship, there are some things that you pass on without really focusing on them. It's one of the beautiful things, and I know for me, I'm going to pivot to jamming, you know, which we accredit Bill Monroe as the father of bluegrass for kind of being the father of bluegrass, and yet, you know, it was his friend Arnold Schultz that taught him a lot of the blues notes, and then it was really the practice of jazz combos, sending solos around, that each person gets to kind of take a solo, and that would be a great way to sell more records, because then you've got like little superheroes in the band rather than just one guy and a bunch of other guys just standing back there. So they kind of adapted that or misappropriated it from jazz. But it became the kind of foundation of bluegrass and jamming, which is really a very interesting way of approaching a music form. Because I know as a person, when people talk about being anxious, you know, I've mentally referenced my classical music career where I'd put on my shoes that don't have any traction. That seems to be a really important part of playing classical, you know, performing, is wearing shoes that don't have any traction so you can fall down at any time. You know, dresses that are so long that the heels of the shoes are stepping on the hem of the dress, and then go up there and we're going to shine a big light on you, and then meanwhile we'll all hide in the dark in silence. So it's no surprise to me that people get performance anxiety.
Yeah.
But this jamming phenomenon, which becomes, it lends itself to mentorship, because we sit in a circle, everybody's vulnerable, everybody's going to take a solo, and I remember, you know, I was a hot shot, if you can't tell, from a young age, and I would take sometimes you take 2 breaks. Paula, you never did this, right? Iris never did it, because I told her, don't ever take more than 1 break. My God, just out yourself. As an egomaniac, to take 2 breaks in the same time. But I did it once as a kid, because I thought, well, that was going pretty good. I guess I'll keep going. Boy, they shut me down like that. So you did not take 2. This is not your turn. It's her turn. So in what ways, and I'm going to open it up to anybody on the panel or the audience, really. Do they hear the audience on our live stream? If we not as okay, so if you want to chat, we can have you come up and take a microphone if you have. But what is jamming? Why jamming? What is it going to do in the future? And how can we make it the real record industry? Just kidding, not the last part, but everything before that. What is jamming and what does it do?
I'd say that jamming, it connects a whole bunch of different music genres. It like runs through like rock and jazz and bluegrass and just basically everything. Every good genre of music, I guess. But I think it's a really valuable skill that I mean, I know a lot of like classical people who in orchestra they would like talk all this big talk, but it's like, can you play a solo? No. I think it's good to humble classical music sometimes, because it's like there's all these other genres of music that connect people, and it's like jamming is like the thing that runs through all of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's like worth the experience, like she said, to humble classical musicians, because they have to read their notes and everything, and then they have like these certain positions, and then like you ask them, oh okay, then let's play this song right now, and they're like, well, I don't have the music for it. Well, you don't need the music for it. You can just randomly play. Listen to what you're playing.
No, you don't have the paper for it.
Oh, the paper, my bad. The sheet of music, that's what I meant to say.
That's what performing is.
Yeah, and like, it's so amazing that these random people just come in a circle and they're like, okay, this is a song and we're going to play it in this key. Figure it out. Just listen to it and you'll figure it out. And you do manage to figure it out. Like, you're just sitting there listening to yourself in the meantime, and then all of a sudden it'll click. And then you'll be able to learn how to play those songs, and then you can take them in as your own. Like, I've learned so many new songs, and every time I hear a different version of it, it just sticks in my head. And I just love hearing the different versions that people have. And you'll look at others, like I usually look at other fiddle musicians and how they're checking, because like I want to improve my techniques. So I just managed to learn a little bit from them, and that's how I managed to learn a lot. And yeah.
I like to tell people that jamming is kind of what I call pre-performance.
Yes.
And it gives you an opportunity to work on that performance anxiety issue that we've been talking about. And because in the jam you get a chance to actually stop. And say, oh, I didn't do that right. Can I do it again? And yeah, you sure can. Go ahead, do that again. And you have permission to do that. Whereas, and on stage you don't have permission to do that. And so it really helps with that. And then it also helps just playing with other people. The whole idea, the whole community and fellowship aspect aside. I found that a lot of people who, learn on their own which is very common in the roots tradition. A lot of us are self-taught in a sense. If we didn't have the privilege and pleasure of being taught by someone else and being mentored, and so timing is a huge issue, for the self-taught, and so that when they learn how to play with other people, so jamming is a incredibly advantageous learning situation for them as well, and just to help play with other people. I ran onto a phrase several years ago where the phrase goes, it used to be said that practice makes perfect, but that's really incorrect. It's performance that makes perfect, and so because when you're practicing just by yourself, you could be practicing something very wrong. And so when you're with others, the importance of playing with others, and jamming is just it's just that crucial and critical initial step before you perform.
Nice.
And I think bluegrass music is unique that way in our genre. We are one of the only music where probably 90% of the people who come to the concerts and whatever are actual players.
True.
Yeah.
People come to a symphonic concert and not 90% of the people in the audience are not symphonic players.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how blues and jazz operate in a very similar, as I understand, performance decorum. Participating in, whether you're vocally participating or you're an instrument or you're just like the audience, not being separate from the performer is a universal attribute of folk music. Well, I think folk music is like, it's about folks that are doing it, it's like not a, yeah, it's a beautiful
So the
thing.
jamming part is, a huge part of a festival.
It really is, and
Because everybody there is a player along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how many times I've been to festivals and talked to someone or saw someone out in the campground jamming and said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were here at this festival." They'd never attended a stage show yet that weekend. They've been out in the campground jamming.
Yeah.
And so and again in this genre, particularly of bluegrass, you can almost sometimes hear as good or better music in the campground that you may have heard on stage.
Yeah.
And so it's really quite the phenomenon. So, but I love the when you boil all this down, the word that comes to mind for me is that of participation as opposed to spectator and just observation. Of all the musical genres, bluegrass has within its DNA I think the best chance of being the most participative, and also the best representative to be inclusive and intergenerational.
Yes, very much.
yeah, I want to pivot to inclusivity a little bit and talk about how and what the next steps are in mentorship. And I think Jam Pack, at the front of the whole thing is just like people need to pass on what they've been given in order to stay alive artistically. I think bluegrass has to, there's a really imperative in bluegrass that they expand their reach just to stay relevant in the society that we live in. And I remember as a young person who learned from a male mentor, I remember being the only young girl. I remember being the only girl in a lot of the festivals, and I've been the only girl in a lot of lineups, but I'm old, I'm really old, so it's been a while since
I don't think so.
but there are online possibilities in terms of reaching people that may not be sitting here. We're recording this. It's going to be accessible to people all over the world. What are the next steps in mentorship? I'm coming for you, Annie. What are the next steps in mentorship so that bluegrass can stay relevant and alive? And how do people learn from what you've done?
Okay, this is a very huge topic, as we all know, and that's one reason that we really stepped out this year to get over here so people could see different kinds of people, different colors, different styles of living that are true bluegrass traditional players have been for many years and love the music. And we adopted some time back, and this isn't unique, that bluegrass is for everybody. This music is born to be, you know, what we're just talking about, it's born to include people of all kinds, of all religions, of all nationalities. And Jam Pack came about because my husband and I, back in '85, we moved from the Navajo reservation where we were in education. We moved to Chandler, and we moved to an immigrant neighborhood just because the house was cool and it was old, and we thought we could afford it. We could have maybe afforded better, but he was kind of tight, and so we got this little house and 1,000 square feet, and that's what but we chose to be in this cool old neighborhood. And so the band is a neighborhood band. Paula was an exception, but her babysitter was right down the street. Yeah. So everybody kind of came from there. And from there, all the children became friends. I'll never forget there were black children, lots of Hispanic children, a couple of white children back then, Filipino, all kinds of kids. And they came home from high school one day, and she said, the Hispanic girl said, "You know what, somebody asked me, how come do you know Alicia?" And she said, "Oh, we're in a band together." And that formed, and I believe this with all my heart, we have to be socially connected. Okay, a lot of people are not going to jump out here and say, "Oh, I want to play bluegrass music." From Nashville on, there are ways that you have to start bringing in people of color, people of sexual orientation, whatever. But it has to be a conscious effort to do it, and it's not going to happen overnight because it has to be in your heart. Okay, I'm going to join the NAACP in my little town and volunteer. Okay, or I'm going to go over here to the Baptist church and say, "Hey, I free of charge, I've got a bunch of banjos or guitars. I would love to just form a group and teach. Adults, children, anybody. Maybe 2 people come. Pretty soon they're going to be a bunch." But it's not, "Oh, I'm bringing my thing to you." Nothing like that. It has to be that basically, you know, it's a right thing. We're going to all be in this world, and we better get along with each other and learn to love each other. So that's on my tattoo.
No, I was going to ask you what it said.
My tattoo. Well, I did this during COVID when I ran out of things to do.
You had somebody else do it. You didn't do it yourself. That's
no,
hard.
I didn't do it
That's hard.
myself. I was not in prison at this time, sort of. But our neighbor was a tattoo artist anyway. He said, "Yeah, come on down." So I got Jam Pack there, and then I thought, you know, after, what's his first name? Michael Floyd. Is it Michael Floyd? Floyd. The guy that got
George
killed.
Floyd.
Yeah. Am I right?
George Floyd.
George Floyd. Okay. Everybody, you know, big lot of talk and marches, which I did. My daughter said I couldn't go to because of COVID. But I took a saying that had been formed by some church back in 2006 on the immigration issue, because we're in Arizona. And I had a lot of children in my band that didn't have papers. And so we marched around on that, but their motto was stands on the side of love. And a lot of people don't even understand what that means. But I think we do. And that's kind of Jam Pack's motto. But that's what I'm saying. To start to be inclusive, diverse, there's a mindset that has to go with that.
It's the excellence mindset.
What?
It's the excellence mindset. We talk a lot about excellence.
Yeah.
But it's the real rigor, the real excellence.
The real thing,
The
and
real
to
thing.
start forming the little groups of anybody, but I just know, Nashville itself, that's the heart. IBMA is there. The African American Museum is there. And I don't know how much interaction there is, but it's right there. There can be so much, but it has to start showing in pictures, in bands, people like my buddy here that want to play the music. And then the jamming, can I speak one more?
Heck
I
yes,
didn't get to.
go, do
The
it.
jamming, we're like one big jam in Jam Pack. They're all crowded into the living room, 20, 25, twice a week. And we all play together and they watch each other and then they go off for their little lessons. But everybody plays the breaks at the same time. So everyone gains experience like that. But if they go out to a festival, they know exactly how a jam works.
Yeah, it's incredible that a 5-year-old knows what to do during a jam.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's all I have to say.
I'd say it also is helpful, we're all making choices. Everybody in the world is making choices about what they have time for and what they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's commendable on behalf of the IBMA to create a space
Yes.
for aspiring young musicians to shoot for, because everybody's excellence minded at the end of the day. Everybody wants to throw their effort in a direction that goes somewhere. Nobody's going to just do this thing. And so it's cool that IBMA is creating a safe space for this thing, because it's pretty exciting to go across the country and play music. And Iris is here for the first time. For the last, and it was like a big deal that we got to come out here. And so for the last part of are you guys ready, Paula and Iris? You guys ready? I'm giving you a 30-second heads up. This thing dies over time. It's the people that keep bluegrass alive. It's the people that will expand this to keep it, to make it more relevant. And when a thing does not expand, eventually it just gets filtered into other places. So I'm going to ask you where you see yourself in the future, how you see yourself participating in this, and what your goals are as artists and as young mentors.
Well, for me personally, I was in charge of one of the small bands in Jam Pack, which is called the Woodbees. It's not really a small band. It consists of 10 little kids, and the older kids, for Black Rose, they would go on to their separate band practices, and I would stay with them, and I would say, okay, you guys, come on, let's play the circle song. Let's play This Little Light of Mine, and I would go individually and help all of them, and so. Eventually, when Jam Pack is passed on to somebody else, I think that we can all have the idea of the basic structure that will provide for people. We all know how to teach other people. So I don't think it'll ever die off within us, because maybe I'll go off to college next year, but I know I'll come back. I'll come back and teach myself.
Of course you
Yeah, that 2 weeks break, I know I'll come back and be like, hi, Miss Beach, and I know the little girls are going to be like, oh my God, Paula, can you help us with this? And I'd be so willing to help them out because it's what makes me happy, teaching others. It makes me happy that I'm useful to something. So I think I'll never stop being like a musician. I'll never stop teaching others because it's something that I genuinely enjoy, even though sometimes they really like, I don't know, but yeah, I'll definitely keep playing, and I'll help everyone out, even though maybe I don't know how to play the guitar. I can help them with singing, and I'm pretty sure that's what we'll continue doing, helping each other out.
Nice. Iris, we'll go all the way down the line. Blake is coming for you eventually.
I think that you learn the most not only when you're performing, but when you're teaching other people, just because it's, you think about, okay, what do I need to tell this person? And then you learn to apply it to yourself because you can't be a hypocrite. So it's like, I think that once people realize that, I don't think that certain kinds of music will ever die out, or certain ways of playing music will ever die out, as long as you realize that when you teach it to other people, you're learning the most yourself. I think that there have been times where I feel like I'm not learning anything, like I'm practicing and practicing, but I'm not learning anything. And that always comes back when I, like if a friend wants to learn a song on guitar, or if I want to teach a song that I like to my band or something like that. I think that as long as people learn to share their gifts, that the music will just keep going.
Well, you guys are the front line, and thank you. It takes a lot of courage to serve on a panel at IBMA, and I want to thank Iris and Paula specifically for being here. And Annie Beach is my living rock star. Some people come here to see Allison Krauss. I come here to see you. Allison got some good licks, though. Let's not play. But many people don't. You know, Greg grew up in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad was from Lebanon,
Mm-hmm.
and you were raised by your grandma.
Right.
And 30 years in the ministry. This man is an airbender. He knows how to bend the air, and so I just want to invite you to take us out and tell us where we go from here. Well, you got a showcase at 5. I mean,
Yeah,
you could do that, but
yeah,
that's
that's true.
in the big picture.
Yeah, you know, life's been interesting. The fact that you know, growing up in West Virginia as you know, for quite some time, you know, not knowing who my biological father was, and then learning later on that, you know, that I'm of Lebanese descent, and you know, that was music actually, you know, helped me deal with a lot of that, you know, emotionally and psychologically, and a lot of my mentors walked with me through that as well. Mentors in West Virginia, and they were learning as well, and they were growing, and they were stretching themselves in that fact as well, and so. You know, I think that as far as where I see myself, you know, in the future, I'm just living in the moment, really, and you know, taking it one step at a time. You know, starting a new full-time career in the second half of life, and enjoying it. And I don't know, you know, I don't know how much time I have left to do that, but I'm going to do it as much as I can. And I'm going to invite people to walk alongside me, as many as will. And yeah, so I'm excited about that, and I appreciate the opportunity to, you know, to do like this and to share, not just, you know, performing, but also to, you know, to share where we've all come from, and the fact that, you know, we can do that.
Awesome. Oh, we've got members of the
Yes.
family. Those are hovering here. So we can find GregBlakeMusic.com. That's where they can find you. And you're
Yeah.
on stage with Special C. Greg's the new lead singer of Special Consensus. Cool band name, by the way.
Oh,
And
that's who you were.
that's right. Don't miss it. 5 o'clock. Hi, you guys. This is the Fair Black Rose Membership Consortium. Total World Domination through Vibrating Wooden Boxes. And we want to thank you guys for coming in, and we're just out of here. I think we ended 11 on the nose. Is that right?
Did we?
You guys are, where can, is it, yeah, is it?
Noon.
12.
Is it?
It's already 12.
Got you, thank you so much. You guys, where's your next showcase? Where can we find you?
You can find us, tonight we're playing at a church,
Yeah,
9 o'clock.
vintage church, 9 o'clock.
What's your band name?
Fair Black Rose, and they are the hardest working band in bluegrass this week. They are like everywhere. And so you can find their Instagram, Fair Black Rose. Just got back from the social media channel workshop, so it's going to be totally, they were awesome at the leadership bluegrass reception. Annie, yeah. You guys are awesome. They're going to work all week. Paul and Iris, thank you so much. Best of luck to you guys, and let's give it up for the panel. Annie Beach.
This is great. Thank you, Annie.
Well, thank you, Anna Frick. She was out here too.
That was